Welcome back to the Tangent. We're back again talking about books. I don't even think I introduced everybody before, but it's the same three people that were here before.
We are hopefully by now.
So I'm not going to introduce. You know who we are.
Right.
So we'll let Devin start again on a book series that.
This is a series. Well, not in a, we're just gonna talk about the first book because all three of us have read the first book.
Yeah, I think me and Devin are the only ones who have read the whole series.
Right, and I barely even remember the whole series. I remember the first one very well.
I remember the first one and the second one pretty well.
Right.
The third one I barely recall.
Right, but so this is a book I read when I was in like middle school. So it kind of like that's kind of your target audience is like budding young adult, I would say, and it's called The City of Ember by Jean Deprow. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. So The City of Ember is kind of to describe it, I would say it's your typical like young adult trope of like it's an interesting world that's not quite the same as ours, but you don't really know it. There's a lot of mystery about it.
Yeah.
There's like rules and regulations that they have to follow, and like it. The young adult main character is kind of figuring out.
They
what
literally,
the deal is
without
with it.
making it punny, they literally hold you in the dark.
Yeah.
A lot.
Hilarious. So, after a certain time, like, the lights go out, there's no street lights anymore, you're not allowed to leave your home, stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
it's very dark. When I say dark, I don't mean dark as in, like, a lot of dark things happen. I mean, the book is basically based in a dark world with very little electricity.
Very little supplies,
It kind of reminds me of like Fallout, except you never leave the vault.
Yeah, exactly. Way to kind of spoil a lot there with that. If anybody's played Fallout, that
No, they go over
they're
that
essentially
pretty explicitly. Like, something bad happened. They're all underground waiting for things to get
Right.
Do they?
Yeah, it's pretty early.
They do kind of just reveal that they're underground.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, I can't remember if that was like a late revelation in the book or not.
Because,
like I said,
I'm pretty sure the characters in the book have forgotten that a sky is a thing.
Right.
But like they know that there's supposed to be something up there besides more cave.
Yeah.
Right.
They just don't know why they know that.
To me, every time I think about it, I always think about it's like, how the heck do they get their vitamin D?
Yeah. You got to think that, like,
Well, they go over some of that.
I mean, they don't
too.
describe anybody as being especially tan or anything, but like.
No, but
sun is important.
Nutrition.
They go over some stuff like a lot of their food has been
Dregs of.
Well, their food now is basically this, like, just whatever's left.
Yeah, the just
But
dregs of what's
originally
remaining.
it was supposed to be like a lot of nutritionally reinforced stuff.
To make
now
up for
they
the
just
fact
got
that
like
they're
canned goods left.
And they barely have any of that. And they're trying to still grow stuff, which they can grow some stuff underground because they do have artificial light and things.
Mm-hmm.
But the electricity is failing, and
I think doesn't
things
a
are
lot
falling
of it
apart.
have to do? Don't they talk a lot about like how the maintenance of some of this equipment never really got passed on? So it's like
they don't
a
know.
lot of the maintenance guys are doing things just because that's the way things have always been done, but they have no idea why it's done that way.
Right.
And as a result, some of it's just not as effective as it should be.
That's part of what the book is about. Is like instead of teaching like a skill to the next generation, they're just showing the next generation how to maintain something.
And on top of that, they're not picking people that are good at things or allowing them to pick what they want to do. They draw their names out of a hat.
Yeah, it's
basically
random.
to assign jobs.
Right. So,
which is not the greatest way to make sure your society continues running forward.
It definitely had a morality style to the story about like how if you don't teach the next generation how to be, what the world needs them to be,
Yeah,
the world will eventually end.
The way I see it,
because
now
they won't be able to maintain.
Remembering the plot and like looking at it now that I'm like 10+ years older than I was when I originally read it, is like, if it wasn't for the fact that obviously the main character is like, gonna be the heroic better than the average person, I feel like if this were to happen in today's society, we'd be screwed. If they weren't.
It is already starting.
The main character in City of Ember is not exceptional at anything. She just is persistent.
Goes out of her way. She's persistent.
She understands that things are going badly. Her job is a message runner, which is what she wanted.
Yeah.
She wanted to be a message runner. She just wanted to run through the city because she's a kid and she wants to run.
Yeah, and she's she's got good.
So she's not particularly good at anything.
Right.
Her friend who wanted to be he wanted to be an engineer or something.
Mm-hmm.
He's good at stuff, and he got the job he wanted by trading. Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
He traded because he was going to go work at the waterworks.
Right.
But he wants to be an engineer, and I think he actually got stuck being in the waterworks. But
I remember it being a huge deal.
He was really big on, like, I know how to fix City of Ember, and I know how to fix everything. And he wanted to go do this job, and he didn't get picked for it, even though he was obviously better at it than anyone else in his class, which is a failure of this system, I think. But,
right.
So he didn't get picked for it, but he eventually sneaks in and tries to go fix everything, and figures out that, no, everything is way worse than I thought it was.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, if you look at that, and then you look at, like, society today, and it's, I can't say it's completely coming true, but it's getting close, because look at, everybody keeps saying, go to college, go to college, go to college, go to college. Because thinking that college and that kind of education is going to open up more doors for you. Well, it's not going to open up doors for everybody.
I honestly think that it is an entire book about the failure of fairness.
Agreed.
Because there are two alternate systems they could use. They could use a more socialist system, which is you are assigned your job because that is how you can provide for the community.
That's what you're good at.
Or you could do the capitalist system, which is you do what you want to do and try and make it profitable. Which you make things profitable by making other people want to give you stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the two other systems. Or you can do the absolute fairness system, which is everyone has a chance to do everything and you draw their name out of a hat. Which means society will eventually crumble.
Right, but I mean,
the folly
there's
of
a lot of morality.
Fairness.
There's a lot of moral stories that you can pull out of this book. I mean, I do understand why they had you read it in school.
No, that's not how it happened. He was
in school at the time.
I was in middle school at the time. I didn't read it as an
they
assignment.
didn't make you read it as an assignment.
I chose it for like a book report thing, right? Just I got to read whatever the hell I wanted.
I think a lot. No matter what stories and morals you're pulling out of City of Ember, those aren't really stories and morals that they teach in a lot of schools anymore. So
true.
It's not something that you would get assigned to read.
Yeah. No.
And then the second book, I think, actually goes into I'm going to get into the second book. I'm just on the same vein. The second book gets into a lot of the failures of just absolute charity, like welfare, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Because no one in the city knows how to do anything.
Right.
And they run into people who do know how to do stuff, and they just sort of mooch.
Right.
Gotcha.
All right, so I'm gonna move on to two different books that I read in my teenage years in high school. Again, it was just kind of like I went to the library and found these books and decided to read them, kind of thing.
I loved doing that when I was in middle school.
There wasn't any particular reason why I decided on these books. It just, I don't know, it kind of felt like random.
Right.
It was like I found this book, I guess I'm going to read it. And it just so happened that it was something that I completely related to on both, examples. So the first book is called Twisted. It is written by Laurie Halse Anderson. This book is the reason why I read the second one that I'm going to talk about, because I realized that it was like a subject matter that was like, holy crap, I should be reading about these kind of things. So Twisted is about a boy who basically he has just terrible luck. He ends up doing something for attention on his summer break, and he gets in trouble, and has community service and whatnot, and he's just a typical like loser teenage boy, who's kind of wants attention, but at the same time he just wants to be himself and not be shat on by everybody else. And so, he's continuing to, now that he's done the thing and gotten in trouble for it, he's getting a lot more attention for it, which initially is what he did it for, was to get attention, but it kind of backfires on him, and he ends up in an even shittier situation.
Does everyone know he did the thing?
Yes. People know, which is why he got the attention.
Like, how bad of a thing is it?
It's like vandalism, like public vandalism.
Okay.
Sure, just draw penises on cars.
I can't honestly.
Sorry,
I can't
I
remember
just
what
watched-
it was that he did.
I just watched that Vandals.
So
But
it was something like spray painting or something like that.
yeah, something just typical teenage vandalism, and so he gets put in. He's a small kid, super losery. So as community service, he has to do roofing all summer.
Okay.
And so he gets jacked, and like works hard and has calluses on his hands and stuff. So like, not only is he getting attention for the fact that he did the thing, he's also getting attention for the fact that now he's not such a loserish looking guy.
Okay. So he learns the value of hard work.
He learned, yeah, well, kind of, but like he ends up in like a complete and total shitstorm. Basically, he gets.
Does he kill someone with a roofing hammer or something?
He gets accused of rape.
Oh, well,
Which he didn't do. So basically, his dad's boss has two kids. One of them is the bully, and the other one is the hot chick that he likes. So through all this attention getting, eventually the hot chick kind of starts to take notice of him, and then he goes to a party. She gets drunk and tries to make a move on him. He says no because she's drunk and leaves.
Okay.
And then she gets raped at the party, and he's the number one suspect. And so he goes through just like a freaking roller coaster of like, my life fucking blows now.
Yeah.
And so he's got to work that out. And as a teenager who had a massive amount of like depression and the typical teenage angst where my life sucks, even though maybe it doesn't.
I'm sure it goes over. I'm sure it goes over the girl too, because.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And like she kind of knows that it's not him, but at the same time, it's like
she's not exactly sure who else to point the finger at.
Yeah, exactly. And if she does say something, really, she's just gonna be vilified either way.
Yeah.
Because she's just the scum that got raped now.
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter.
She shouldn't have been drunk at the party.
They want to vilify
she shouldn't be drunk
him.
at a party and wore that short skirt.
Yeah,
that's stupid.
What a bitch. But
my God.
They
so
just
it's both,
picked
it's both ends of the ends of that particular shitstorm.
Yeah.
They picked the villain. All the teenagers at their school picked him as
because
the
he
shitbag.
was already
Because he was just the number one person thrown into that.
Because he did the worst thing in town.
it's that
he spray painted a thing.
Right.
So
exactly.
is he like the only bad kid
it's
in
that
town
same
too?
mentality they use a lot.
Yeah.
The police officers use a lot when they try to find a villain or when they try to find a suspect. Sometimes they'll go through. All right, well,
Past
somebody robbed
behavior
this.
and
Yeah,
junk.
somebody robbed this convenience
exactly.
store. So let's see who around the area has done robbery in the past, and we'll start knocking on doors and see if they are.
I'm guessing they're in a small town.
It's a semi small town. I mean,
Oh,
boss's dad is
what
like
I'm
the rich
saying-
family.
What I'm saying is like it would have to be a small town if he's like the only kid in town who did a bad thing, and his bad thing was vandalism.
Well, everybody knows he was at the party with her.
Well, yeah, but leading up to, he was the kid who did the bad thing,
Yeah.
and then he went to the party, and then girl got raped, and everyone assumes it was the kid who did the bad thing.
Well, yeah, kinda. Those two things put together. They kind of don't really talk about.
It screams small town to me.
Yeah. Well, essentially, yeah. That if you get that out of there, I would say yes. That's kind of the picture that they don't really talk about it, or I just don't really remember that detail of it.
It's, yeah.
I kind
but-
of want to read this.
The reason why
I do too, because I want to.
the writing for it is
what
phenomenal.
It is.
the writing on it is phenomenal, and the same with the next book that I'm going to talk about. Honestly, so it's through the perspective of a teenage boy, but both of these books are written by a woman. You know, so like she does a fantastic job at understanding kind of what he would be going through inside his head, like the thoughts and the things he's noticing and the whatnot. And like for me, I was like, this is amazing that she's that good at this.
Well, I can't remember her name, but the lady who wrote The Outsiders.
Yeah, again,
like
a fantastic example.
A fantastic example of getting into the minds of adolescent boys.
And I would say if I had never read The Outsiders, I probably wouldn't have noticed that as much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
The Outsiders is such a great book.
There's a point in the book where he's literally got his dad's gun in his mouth, like thinking about, and
Wow.
the way that scene is written is fantastic to me, because it was insanely relatable to me and to a lot of people that I know. You know, because not only was I thinking about myself in that point of how I relate to it, I'm like, I have plenty of friends that I know would, read this and be like, holy crap, So, Split is the next book. It's by, I'm definitely going to butcher this because she's Middle Eastern. Swati Avashti, or Avasthi, I think, because I think I switched the T and the H. So this one covers domestic abuse. Essentially, at the beginning of the book, our main character, the reason why it's called Split is because he's got a split lip, and his dad beat him. All growing up until this point, he's probably like 16, 17, I think. Up until this point, he's just known getting the crap beat out of him by his dad.
Mhm.
And so he just decides, I'm leaving. He gets in his car and he drives out of state all the way to his brother, who is by this time has grown up and left home to get away from dad, and is like, I think he drives all the way to Ohio from Missouri.
Okay.
Or vice versa. I remember it was like Midwest. And
Yeah.
so he goes there, and it just covers like what kind of thing somebody that was abused domestically kind of goes through. And like you can think maybe, oh, Devin was beat up when he was a kid. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like,
I only beat up Devin a little bit when he was a kid.
yeah. Anyways, I just liked the rawness of this kind of thing being talked about in a book.
Right.
The
subject matter.
The subject matter was ridiculously like, man, I want to read about this.
Right.
And it's raw as hell.
I mean, it's something that a lot of people who live in, and I'm going to use this word really badly, but live in a world where everything's okay. Like, they have everything they need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know what that...
I mean, first
the
world
entitlement.
First world problems is a phrase for a reason.
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, there are
like,
people that
I
live...
locked my keys in my freaking...
Yeah.
Mercedes, and I'm 16 years old or something like
Right.
that. There are worse problems to have, definitely.
Right. I mean,
but for them, that's the
people that live
life.
people that live in
sucks,
entitlement don't understand what it's like to grow up.
Yeah.
I mean, like we did, because we're not all from rich families. We're not. I mean, nobody in this room is from a rich family. Now, our parents.
And we are excessively privileged as compared to many other people. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I would say basically everyone in, like, okay, if you separate the hemispheres into quarters of the
Right.
world, everyone in our collected hemisphere, our quarter of the world, is highly privileged compared to a lot of people in the other
absolutely,
3/4 of the world.
absolutely.
Agreed. Because we live in America,
We live in America,
so there's
and
definitely
we could have been
an
born
amount of
in
privilege.
Western Europe and essentially been the same thing,
Right.
except with higher taxes.
Yeah.
Like,
But-
honestly, it wouldn't have been that much different. But if we had been born in most parts of South America, or a lot of rural China, or a lot of Africa, or hell, we even certain islands like Pacific Islands.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, it's not as just thoughtlessly easy in
Right.
a lot of those places.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it's good subject matter for people who don't see firsthand some of the things.
Or some people who do. I would say some people who don't
Right.
know that kind of thing and read that would maybe enjoy this. And then I'm definitely going to say that people who have lived on
through
the shitty side of what life can be would enjoy the hell out of both
Right.
of these books.
So all right, good, very very good.
I would like to continue into one of my books that's along a lot of the same vein,
Okay.
and it's If You Find Me. If You Find Me is about a pair of sisters that live in the woods. The oldest sister I think she was 4 or 5, when her mom decided to kidnap her, essentially, and run away from her husband. And she went and decided to go live in the woods. She got a little mobile home and a truck and drove out in the middle of nowhere, and basically told her daughter, you don't talk to anyone, you don't go anywhere, this is your world now. You live in the woods. And she lived there until she turns, I think, 15 or 16, something like that.
I don't know. You keep telling me to read the book, and I keep forgetting to.
I'm not asking you for the answers. I'm trying to remember them. 'Cause,
Right. Talking out loud.
So she ends up getting a little sister because in order to get money, her mom has to
Make money.
make money. So
Which,
she ends
yeah.
up with a little sister. And one day out of nowhere, she hasn't seen her mom in like a month. So she's doing something. She's getting ready to go hunt some food with a shotgun, and meanwhile she's just sitting around playing the violin or whatever, because her mom was a concert violinist. So she's just sitting out in the middle of nowhere, and her little sister is running around looking for fairies in the woods, and just these two random people just come out of nowhere and are looking for them, and one of them ends up being her dad. And the other one's a social worker, and they got a letter from her mom saying that she can't care for them anymore, and here's where they are, come pick them up.
Whoa.
So that's the first couple of pages of the book.
Dang.
Whoa.
Dang.
Yeah, and the rest of the book is here's how two girls who grew up in the woods adjust to normal life.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I definitely want to read this.
Yeah. Actually, I don't even
Especially
remember.
after having that lengthy discussion about the other two books.
Yeah,
I don't even
I
remember
would
if it was a
think that.
movie.
because mom was she was diagnosed bipolar, addicted to meth, so she was highly abusive, and so it's like it was not a good life that they were living in the woods.
I mean,
I don't
right.
remember if it was a
As you
movie.
And there was
Easily.
also a lot of mental abuse in the form of basically demonizing her father to her. So she thinks that the reason they ran away is because Dad beat them, but she was so little that she doesn't really
know
remember
what the-
what they actually ran away for.
Was that ever turned into a movie or anything? Or
Not to my knowledge.
Because there was something, and I don't think it was a girl, so it might not have been this, but I do vaguely remember watching something about. I think it was a dad and son that lived. Maybe they were homeless, or maybe they purposely lived out there.
Was it a Will Smith movie?
No.
Because there was a Will Smith movie like that was based on a true story.
I was getting Will Smithy vibes for sure.
But there's
when you were
also,
describing this.
there's a lot of movies along similar veins with
Yeah, and it might have just, but it just clicked something in my head about that basic story. So they end up on like they end up being found, and they get sent to a couple different places to try to learn to adapt within the world.
Mhm.
I think his dad was military and was a little
touched.
a little PTSD,
bit
bit of shell shock.
Yeah, a little bit of shell shock, a little bit. So they ended up hiding a lot. So whenever they would try to camp out, it was always train to hide, train to
Mhm.
Maybe it was a girl. Maybe it was her dad and a girl.
Was it Hannah?
Maybe.
Because there was a movie Hannah where they lived out. Basically, they ended up living out in one of the Arctic circles.
Oh, that wasn't it.
Well, that was
somewhere.
a good movie too.
I want to say it was somewhere.
But now we're on movies instead of books.
Yeah, but anyway, so those are really good books that I've never read, and I actually wrote down
two of them I haven't read, so I'm going to read those.
I've written down. I wrote down Twisted because I'm definitely gonna.
So I'm probably gonna read
look that
If
one
You
up.
Find Me Soon.
Yeah, that was good.
Because for both of these, so to paint a picture, in my high school years, reading a book was a rare thing for me.
Yeah.
But whenever I found Twisted, that's all I was doing was until the book was done. And honestly, like a week later, I read it again.
Yeah, so everyone can find it. If You Find Me is written by Emily Murdoch. So, go look for it, go read it, go listen to it, whatever. It's a really good one.
All right, so I'm gonna go completely off.
Yeah, we need probably a
Topic.
change of subject.
Yeah, a little bit
So-
more lighthearted. So James, we're gonna let you
How
talk
did we
about
start
weirdness.
this with City of Ember? Jesus.
So I'm gonna talk about a book series that I read. Now it's not complete. The guy who wrote it, his name is Scott Siegler. He has written couple other different series. I think there's a series called Alive that he wrote. Maybe one other series, but there's a book called the Galactic Football League. So for me, everybody that knows me, I love sports.
This is a complete about face, but I'm ready for it.
I like
It
sports.
was needed.
But the premise behind this whole series is this is like in the way future. The humans have already explored and met
Found
other
things.
races, but the one thing that has stayed constant is football. Okay,
Naturally.
so because football is one of those
Yeah.
one of those team buildings type things, like
Because everybody likes
the
playing
whole
football.
galaxy decided it wanted the galaxy after all the races met, it would just turn into war. And there was one race of people, or one race, they call them the Bats. And if you read the series, you'll understand why when they describe them. Ended up, because their numbers are so huge, ended up taking over. And to make everybody learn to work together, they created...
Did they take over like in a "Grr, we're taking over" kind of way, or did they take over in like a "look, you need to sit down and shut up" kind of way?
Kind of both. At first, it did start very combat heavy where they took over. But then they're allowing certain areas who have certain things, allow them to run their own. But
So it's not
their
like
overlords are the Bats. But certain systems within the whole galaxy are, they have the ability to kind of run themselves. But
Okay.
they have to, their overlords are the Bats. So if they get a little out of hand, the Bats will come in and be like, quit your crap and get your ass back to doing what you were doing before.
Okay.
So they know that to beat the Bats is hard because their numbers are just immense and their technology is higher. So, but the one thing the Bats really enjoyed is when they took over and they started doing looking at the human race, they liked football. They liked the aspect of what football is. So then they started integrating other races. So you got like different aliens that have different body types, different attributes that make them good for football in different ways. So like the Scolorno are basically human-sized crickets. Without saying anything else, they're basically human-sized crickets. So they can run fast and they can jump. I mean, you're talking like 1 second, 1.5 to 2 second 40-yard dashes.
Think
the
about how
thing-
loud
okay.
their freaking thing would
They
be.
don't make those. They're not.
But this actually makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of different team sports, but football is the team sport that the only one I can think of at the moment that has such a
Diverse.
a diversity of position.
Skill based.
So
Right.
so like
Skill-based,
you could literally have a small skinny person play football and a big brutish person play football, but they'd be in different positions, being just as valuable as each other.
Right. So
Yeah.
like there's a
Kinda
couple
like
different
chess.
other a couple other races that have different body types and styles. So like there's a race that they're giant worms. They're like 12 feet long, but they stand up halfway. So they're about 6 foot tall, and they're 6 foot long, so together they're 12 feet, but they're linemen, so they
Right.
do the blocking. They're big, they're
Yeah,
strong.
Because you
Touch
need
the ball.
big brutish people to be
And
your
then-
linemen. You need fast kind of big people to be like your backers. You need
Right.
You need people who are fast with good hands to be your receivers and
So they have a human
Could
race.
be interesting.
They have a
I think
human
I'm
race
doing
called the
this.
Heavy G, which were created to live on high G worlds. So worlds that have a lot of gravity.
Right.
So they have denser bones. They're a little shorter. Their arms are a little longer. So they look almost like apes, but they're human and they're muscular. So they use them for running backs, linebackers. You know, they have some speed on them. Some of the Heavy G are big enough to be linemen, so they can keep up with the other race. You know, and then quarterbacks are regular humans normally. But, like, literally the main character, his name is Quentin Barnes. So if you look at it, it's really funny because he's a quarterback. If you look at his initials, are Quentin Barnes, QB.
yeah.
Kind of funny, right? So he's like 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
Nice.
And, like, he runs like a 2.5 second 40-yard dash.
So he is like the upper echelon of human performance.
Right.
And he kind of barely good enough.
The thing is the
Yeah,
only
compared to
reason
these other
the
players.
only reason that he became as big and strong as fast as he was is because his father got caught doing something and got put into debt, so he became a minor.
Uh-huh.
Well, when his father had kids, the kids take on the debt, so he ended up in the
So you're
mines.
telling me Darth Bane could have been a quarterback?
Yes.
Do you think he couldn't have been?
Well, no, I'm not talking about like he's
Look,
capable
look,
of being
okay,
one.
if
I'm
I-
talking about the story could have went that way.
If I was a quarterback and I could pick one attribute out of any attribute to help me be a quarterback, the Force would be one.
Yes. Yes, it would. But anyway, so
Talk about a Hail Mary. Just,
I can sit and talk about this series like for a long time because there's a lot more to just like the reason why football became popular. They go into a lot of like Quentin and his history and some of the other players and their history and how Quentin interacts with other beings because he's from a nation called the Pierce Nation, and the Pierce Nation are anti-alien, so it's just humans.
Okay.
So he has to learn to deal with the prejudice of having to work with other alien species, and you get through a lot of that, but to me, it's just the fact that it's really well written from a very weird
point of view.
Point of view.
Yeah, it's
because
very
if you listen to the audio side of it,
specific.
it's almost like a radio show. So there are points at the beginning of every little chapter where they give you overviews of what happened. You know, who won what game, who's in the lead in the standings, some of the stats, and he has some of the coolest characters that run these things. And it's just funny. It's great because there's a lot of humor in it, but then once you get into the nitty-gritty of the story itself, there's a lot of drama
It kind of
within it. So it has
I'm getting like Ready Player One vibes. from
kind
it
of,
a
sort of,
little.
yeah. But it's I think it's well written, and I've been meaning to try to read some of his other stuff because he wrote a series called Alive, and I've read the synopsis on it. It sounds pretty interesting. It's about basically somebody wakes up and they don't know where they are, but they're basically on like in this area, and there's a bunch of other people in there. They all wake up, but nobody can remember who they are or why they're there. And they basically, the whole story is how they go about figuring stuff out. But I've never read it. I'd like to read it, but I think that the GFL is one of those books to me that I've read it like 3 times through.
Okay.
And
It sounds very specific, but also like good because of that.
it's very sci-fi.
And
If you like sci-fi and sports,
Yeah, it is very sci-fi sport.
which honestly doesn't sound like that weird of a combination.
No.
no,
But to me, it's just one of those series that I really enjoyed. I found it on accident.
Although
Again, searching through books to try to read. But I found it. I read the first book, and me personally, I was hooked. Not saying that everybody will be hooked because not everybody's into football, not everybody's into sports, not everybody's into sci-fi.
Right.
So that's just my one rando book
You want
that.
to touch on a couple of yours now?
So what do we got in here? Oh, Raven Shadow.
Oh yeah, I've read Raven Shadow.
Okay, we should get into Raven Shadow. All right.
It's been a long time since I've read Raven Shadow.
So, the way I generally describe the first book in Raven Shadow, which is Bloodsong. So,
Okay.
The Raven Shadow trilogy, which the first book is Bloodsong. The way I generally describe it is, it's kind of like Harry Potter, because they go to a school.
Okay.
Right, it's kids going to a school, right? So they're going to be going to this school
Very
for a
Harry
number of
Potter-ish.
years to learn a skill.
Right.
Except that skill is be a Spartan.
Be a Spartan.
Yeah,
As in, like,
like a warrior.
300, like,
Yeah.
Like
pig Spartan.
this
Yeah,
is
kick-
Sparta. Spartan.
Like, you're going to learn how to use a sword. You're going to learn how to go to war. You're going to learn how to be a badass.
Yeah, a warrior,
Yeah.
not a soldier, but a warrior.
So the beginning half of the book is his time in school learning how to be a badass.
Nice.
The second half of the book is him going to war
And being the
and being a badass.
Oh yeah.
The second book is what happens when he comes back from war.
Okay.
And the third book is essentially him going back to war again.
Okay. Yeah, this one sounds good.
So that's just a real quick overview. I'm not sure what else to say about it. There is.
I think it's a phenomenal series.
It's a really neat sort of semi-fantasy world. There is some magic, but it's not looked upon well.
right. That's what the Blood Song is.
There's the Blood Song is one of the forms of magic. Different people call it different things.
Right.
Gifts, the Dark, a lot of other names. I can't remember what the Sword of Sil call it. But there's a lot of different kinds of people, a lot of different nations, and a lot of the different nations they go over things like their different religions, how the different religions view the magic, how the different religions view each other, how the different countries view each other, how they interact with each other, and like why they go to war, and so it goes over a lot of politics, fantasy, learning how to grow up in a hard world.
Is there 4 books in that series?
There's 3.
I thought there was 4.
No, it's Blood Song, Tower Lord, and Queen of Fire.
Okay, Tower Lord. And those are, from what I
They're
remember, they're very long.
They
books.
are rather long, very dense. And when I say dense, I mean there's a lot to them.
Right.
But they're not hard to read. They're very easy to read books.
Because I think I tried to read because we couldn't find an audio file for Tower Lord, and I think you gave me a copy of Tower Lord.
It took a while to come up with an audio copy of Tower Lord. Yeah.
And I tried to read it. I think I tried to read it digitally. I can talk. Remember, I say this a lot.
That's
I can talk.
Way harder to do than just reading it regularly. in my
Right.
opinion.
If I had a book, if I had the
Well,
book,
the thing
it
is,
might be
I don't
easier.
like buying physical copies of books because then I have to tote around books and I have to find more places because I have a bookshelf full of books already.
Mhm.
I don't need more books to have to store.
I do
Right.
have. As soon as I was done reading The Gentleman Bastards, I bought those books.
Oh, you did buy the physical copies of Gentleman Bastards. Good
No, that's
for you.
But I do have a lot of digital room sitting around, so I can fill it with because EPUBs are very small files.
Right.
You can fit a lot of books in 1 gig of space.
And the EPUBs are Kindle Fire.
Don't remember.
readable?
EPUBs is just the ones that I normally come across. I also come across Mobies. I can read both of them in the same reader. It doesn't matter.
Okay, and you have a. Do you have a reader, or do you just use your tablet?
My tablet doesn't work at the moment. I have an ebook reader on my phone.
Oh, you read it through your phone.
I
think if
I
I
was
had
also reading it on my tablet, but my tablet doesn't work at the moment, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think I tried reading a couple books through like a Nook,
Mm-hmm.
and this was before they had the colors and the full tablets of the Nook, so it looked like it was just a regular book. So it was a little easier, to read on a tablet like that.
Yeah.
Because it looked like you were reading it, because the page
Yeah, it
looked like it was
looks like
a
paper,
page,
and it was
yeah.
printed out like it was on paper.
And
So
I,
that was
I
a
do,
little
I do
easier.
really like the ebook readers, but at the same time, the program I'm using as an ebook reader is called Moon Plus.
I think I have that.
So I like Moon Plus a lot, and it's just a regular Android app, and I use it. Well, I had used it on my tablet until it stopped working, and I use it on my phone. It'll function on both, and you can set it to do all kinds of neat things. It's got a nice night mode on it. It's got zooms and different ways to run pages.
Okay.
And you can. I even had it set up to flip pages in a flip pagey type style for a while.
Nice.
It served no purpose, but it was nice.
Yeah.
Alright. So we kind of went off of books, but I mean, it's a good. It was.
Right.
I kind of asked the question because I like to let people know other ways to read that you're
Yeah,
not having to walk around with
exactly.
hard copies.
But,
a lot of people still love the hard copies. So
Raven's Shadow is a really good book series, and I would recommend people get into it. The third book, in my opinion, it doesn't end quite the way I thought it was going to.
definitely doesn't.
And it doesn't end in a way that made me entirely happy, but I feel like that was kind of the point.
Yeah.
It wasn't meant to be a happy ending, and I have a feeling that the same guy wants to write more stories in that world, and if he had ended it in like a completely happy sort of style, then there wouldn't have been anything left to write about.
okay.
So,
So-
with you saying that's how that ends, I'd like to talk about the Divergent series and
Okay.
begin by saying it does not have a happy ending.
So
Um,
if you guys get into the Divergent series, read the books, don't watch the movies.
agreed. Because
Um,
the first movie isn't like terrible. It's
no,
not.
it's not.
I don't know. I didn't enjoy watching it, but not because it's inaccurate. I just thought it was like boring.
It wasn't
It's kind
very
of
well
like
done.
it's kind of like the first Hunger Games movie wasn't inaccurate. It's
It was
just
just badly done.
Yeah, because they didn't find a suitable substitute for the fact that the majority of the book is internal monologue.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
The- the-
and
the-
that's the
that's-
same thing
That's
with
the same way with Divergent.
Divergent. Honestly, I would say Hunger Games and Divergent are super similar.
They're super. They
But
came out
I
around the same
prefer
time.
Divergent to Hunger Games. So if you haven't read it,
I haven't read it and I haven't watched it, so I don't know that much about it.
You should read it. It's a good series. Again, like throughout the series, it does kind of grow in a way, kind of like Hunger Games does.
right.
But
It's your typical like post-apocalyptic. This is our world now
yep,
kind of thing. So essentially, families grow up in certain factions.
Mhm.
And
Each faction is
after
different.
at a certain point in your teenage years, you have the choice to change factions to whichever you want. And
So what
and they
was the
test
difference?
you.
What's the difference between the factions?
I'd have
I'd
to
have to
probably look
look
them
it
up.
up.
But so basically, they symbolize different like
Some are
traits and
politicians.
values. So there's like Cantor, which are they don't lie.
They're basically politicians.
They do not lie. There's
Then how can they be politicians?
They're good politicians.
there's erudite, which are
What
like
did you just say?
so like Cantor is like
They
okay,
have
so
those.
theirs are yellow. Like Cantor wear yellow and they tell the truth. And then there's erudite. They wear blue and they're smart as hell and they're in charge.
Yeah, they're
of,
intelligence.
Like,
they
intelligence.
they
yeah.
do tech.
They're erudites. Yeah.
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 Exactly.
They do what erudites do.
Honestly, the names of the factions kind of describe them pretty well.
Yeah,
You know,
and
you
then-
get what they are based on. So there's Dauntless,
Dauntless.
there's erudite, there's Cantor,
There's
and
one-
there's like three more, and
but
I can't
think
remember.
of what they are.
So
So
basically,
they just specialize in random, broad stroke sort of topics.
yeah, like characteristics of
So-
person's personality.
So the
of human
Dauntless,
personality.
Dauntless is like
the fearless people
is
that
like fearless. So they end up being the soldiers.
yeah, they're the soldiers. Erudite is like the in charge because
They
they're
run the
smart.
government.
They're the government, and Cantor's like the.
So how many different factions are there?
I think
I don't
there's
remember.
5.
I don't remember 4 or 5.
Okay, so.
Anyways, so hold on. Let me look this up because
So they
one
call
of the
it,
ones we're not remembering right now is the one that
Is
the
also-
main character comes from.
thought she
which
was
one's
Cantor.
evil?
there isn't really an evil.
I like how you no abnegation, selfless, is where the main character comes from. So they're gray. They're not like they try not to be vain at all. They don't give a crap about themselves or their their appearance or their anything like that. They don't change their appearance. They don't they serve everybody else.
She goes from the selfless one to which one?
Dauntless.
Okay, so she went from
completely 180.
she basically just went, look, I want to put on makeup and punch people.
Right.
Pretty much.
So, the reason why it's called the Divergent series is so they're specific. Basically, they make it seem like, okay, you're one thing. You're not. You can't be more than one. You're one. You're if you're dauntless, you're dauntless.
Yeah, and they run you through testing.
The reason why the reason why you get to choose at a certain point in life is because you're choosing what you know yourself to be, rather than like hey, I grew up abnegation.
This is like identity politics on crack.
Right.
Pretty
Like,
much.
You choose a thing,
100%.
and that's the only thing you can be.
Right.
You have to
So
be like everyone else who's that thing, act like everyone else who's that thing, think like everyone
the
else who's that
Divergent,
thing.
though, are people who are all of them.
So
multiple,
normal people.
Or more than one.
More than one, yeah.
So normal people.
More than one.
Yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, honestly, if you really think about it, everybody is all of them.
Right.
They're just, to certain degrees, they're more one than they are others. Obviously. Because that's how people work.
But seriously,
So same with
if
like,
get-
Gryffindor, Slytherin, and Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff. Everybody's all of them, but obviously certain ones
you're
they
gonna
identify
lean
more
towards-
with.
That's actually one of the reasons why I don't like things like the houses in Harry Potter, is because it separates people and makes them
Yes,
too.
it's
It boils them down to too many simplistic concepts.
Yeah.
When obviously, like, all of your main characters in Harry Potter could have been a different house.
Right, all of them.
Like Hermione could have obviously been Ravenclaw. Harry could have been Slytherin, and like Ron seems just as useless as any other Hufflepuff. So,
Anyways, let's not go on that tangent.
that's the main reason why
So,
I don't like separations like
Essentially,
this.
society if you're divergent, meaning like you show characteristics or of like more than
one faction.
then fuck you, we hate you, we're gonna kill you.
Yeah, they end up making them disappear. So
Yeah,
the main
but anyway,
character,
main character's divergent AF, like
So-
super divergent.
Yeah.
Like all of them divergent.
This honestly reminds me a lot of Equilibrium. If you're too normal, we're gonna kill you.
yeah,
Yeah, if you're
And we're gonna send bullet slinging not like ninjas after you. Like
so there's
But
like a whole
the
plot.
series. The series itself, there's a lot behind the series. I found it very entertaining.
Yeah, it was super
very
engaging
entertaining, yeah,
from
super
the word
engaging.
go, because like especially with the main character. The main character's from Abnegation, so she's like boring, mousy, selfless, quiet chick, and then she just goes, nah, I'm dauntless. Like I'm fearless. I do anything without thinking about it.
Here's the thing: how do they expect not to get divergence when they know people start in one thing and they let them choose to be what they want to be?
See, the thing is most people stay.
But then why do
It's
they?
like
why
hella
do they-
controversial if you
What?
choose a different one.
Well, and that's
her and her brother
Tim-
both choose different ones.
So Tim, here's the thing: is that's the whole point of the book.
Yes, exactly.
So what you're stating is the point behind the series.
Right.
So you're already ahead of the game when you're reading
Right.
these. But
you get it right from the word go because I described it all to you, and like me saying like, oh, they're all these
but it's
things.
not just about the factions and what they do. I mean, it's about trying to live in a world where they're trying to push you into that.
Yeah.
So it's them fighting back
yes. So
from that. So
she
I mean,
joins the Dauntless, and the bad guy plot happens, and basically it's discovered they're trying to kill people who are divergent because they're the ones that can and will resist.
So does everyone know that they do this, or is this like a thing they do in secret?
They do it. They do it in secret, and she finds out,
Yeah.
and so
Well, so without destroying the whole story,
yeah.
just read the freaking books.
Yeah, in the first book, she finds out that this is happening, and then the next 2 books are the fight.
Okay. All right.
The continued story of.
I mean,
of
and there's a
Divergence
lot
and
of her
stuff, so-
training in Dauntless, and like
Yeah. So
again, it's another one of those, like we said,
Internal
it's hard
monologue.
to put the internal monologue into a movie.
But anyways,
So the books
the
do a
reason-
lot of the internal
the
monologue
reasons
and
why
what she's
you
thinking.
shouldn't watch the movies and you should read the books is because one, the first movie's boring. Second movie is just they shit on everything they do in the book and change things that definitely shouldn't be changed. I would say, as far as books versus movies differences and stuff, this is the biggest cardinal sin in the second one, to the point where I didn't even care and didn't bother to watch the third one.
Just as an aside.
Well, and then
just-
the ending.
And then they. Yeah.
I'm just gonna tell. I'm not gonna destroy the ending, but I'm just gonna let you know that the movie ending and the book ending are completely different.
Right.
So just as an
For both
aside,
the second book and the third book, they changed the ending and the way things happen completely. And I didn't even know that about the third movie because, again, I was so pissed about what they did in the second movie that I didn't watch
Right.
the third movie.
I'm just gonna say it's weird to me that they take books like The Hunger Games and Divergent and with heavy internal monologues, and all they do is edit it out and just hope that the rest of the movie can stand on its own.
It
When
can't.
there are plenty of movies that are extremely good movies that have internal monologues.
Yeah.
Like friggin' was it Memento?
Yeah.
Like he talks in his own head a lot in that movie.
Yeah.
To help you keep
But
track of how
what's-
he's
What's
understanding
so bad
events.
about having them narrate over the top?
Nothing if you do it right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's nothing
No,
wrong with
I-
narrating over the
I
top.
would
I mean, a lot of we talked earlier about noir with Dresden. A lot of the old noir films did a lot of those voiceovers,
I would
Yeah.
which
think,
is
though...
which is a lot of the reason why reading the audiobooks for Dresden reminds me of watching noir films
Right.
because
Oh.
you're basically listening to
I
like
would
the
think,
noir
though,
style
with this-
voiceovers.
With this one in particular, not only does it have a heavy internal monologue, it switches back and forth between 2 characters on their internal on their narrative
Mhm.
from their perspective and stuff. So
They
at
don't
least
start switching.
they
until
don't
like
do
the
that
second,
until the second book, I think.
Is
but
it the
like,
second or third book when they start switching with
it's
two?
the second one, I'm
Okay.
pretty sure. But so like yeah, I would think that would be kind of difficult to portray into the movies, and also like I don't think that they're gonna hit on as much detail as they do in the books if they were to make it into a movie. But again, I agree with you. I don't know why they cut this out, or if you're gonna make that movie, why would you cut that out?
Right.
Because
Right.
that's the basis of
Well,
how
I mean,
the book
Harry
is.
Potter.
Yeah.
Harry Potter had a lot of internal stuff for just Harry
Ton, yeah.
that they couldn't put in the movies.
They
That
also had a
tried
ton
to-
of Harry being sassy as hell that they take out of the movies, but
and,
anyways,
a lot of Ron not
So
being an
the
idiot.
Divergent series is
Right.
is a really good series. So, do I recommend it? Yes.
I would definitely.
I would definitely recommend the books over the movies. So
Yeah, and it's written by Veronica Roth, so you guys know. And so, just to make sure that I'm not leaving information out, the 5 factions are the factions are Dauntless, the Brave, Amity, the Kind, Erudite, the Intelligent, Abnegation, the Selfish, and Candor, the Honest.
The selfish.
Or Selfless, sorry.
Just-
Abnegation, the Selfless.
When I asked you which one was the bad guys, you should have told me about the selfish ones.
anyway, so on to the next series. Do we have what's our next series that we're looking at?
Well, so we got Brandon Sanderson, Chronicles of Jonathan Tibbs, that I'm sure Tim wants to talk about those 2, and then we got Maze Runner left.
So why don't we go through the
I feel
Brandon
like every
Sanderson
time
stuff.
I take the reins on something, Tim asks me so many questions, and then
Well,
we're
that's
talking
good,
about
though.
it for like 25 minutes.
Well, it's because when you talk about some things, I just don't know anything about them, and I feel like, if I don't know anything about it and someone else,
I swear it
you know.
seemed like we
So-
talked about My Hero Academia for like an hour.
I hadn't seen it.
Anyways,
So let's talk about Brandon Sanderson. So the only thing I've read from Brandon Sanderson is the Stormlight Archives.
I'm gonna let
Again,
John
we've discussed a little bit. It took me a long time to even get through Stormlight because of, I don't know, I guess his intro are
Yeah.
like crazy silly.
I've read a lot of Brandon Sanderson. I like the stuff that he does that's in what's called the Cosmere, which Stormlight takes place in the Cosmere. Mistborn takes place in the Cosmere. Elantris, Warbreaker, a lot of his short stories take place in the Cosmere. Stuff that he wrote that's outside the Cosmere, I feel like is kind of hit and miss.
Okay.
Things that I think were big hits for me were things like Steelheart.
Right.
But I wasn't such a huge fan of his addition to the Wheel of Time. But that might be because I'm not as big a fan of the Wheel of Time. I might have to give it a reread and see if I can give it another chance. But I wasn't as
So-
big into it.
Sanderson has a really weird writing style to me.
Sanderson,
Especially when he was going through Stormlight, like sometimes it was hard for me to follow, especially when he bounced from character to character. Like he does a first person style, but like he runs a couple different characters in his books, and you have to like know who certain people are, and names are always hard for me. And there's a lot of people in Stormlight that you need to know who they are.
There are a fair number of people in Stormlight, and I can't always remember their names, but I can always remember who they are and what they do.
Right.
So when I hear their names again, it generally jogs my memory.
And sometimes names sound too familiar to me.
Mhm.
Like sometimes he makes them sound too close together, so sometimes I get them mixed up. Oh, was he talking about? No, he didn't do that. That was this other guy.
Right.
Okay, now I got who they're talking about.
But Stormlight, in and of itself, is a pretty it's a pretty neat story.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be his magnum opus. It's supposed to be the thing that brings a lot of the Cosmere together.
Okay.
The Cosmere, for anyone who doesn't know, is a collection of stories and series and things that all take place in the same galaxy. So he didn't make a world, he didn't make a universe, he made a galaxy. And all these stories take place in this galaxy, and all the different planets are connected to each other using a different realm, which is the cognitive realm. So if you can get into the cognitive realm, you can get from one planet to the next one, and just go world hopping, which some characters do.
Right.
So,
You said
He said doo doo.
but
We're
the
children.
whole central point is there used to be a god. He was a big powerful god. He apparently did something that irked a bunch of people, so they decided to kill him.
Nice.
So they killed God, and he exploded into, I think it's 16 pieces. And each one of the 16 people that killed him all absorbed a piece, and each one was an aspect of the god. So they were, you have like honor, odium, ruin, preservation, cultivation, different aspects of his personality. And all the gods are about as strong as each other, but they focus on different things. So preservation and ruin are roughly the same strength, but ruin could kill preservation if preservation didn't stop him. Preservation couldn't kill ruin because preservation can't kill things.
Yeah, because
Right.
it's preservation. Creation
So-
versus destruction.
Right, exactly.
Is creation going to destroy destroying?
Right. So the different these new gods, these 16 new gods, basically run around the galaxy, and they give pieces of their divinity to people in the forms of what's essentially magic. So each of the different gods has a different kind of magic attached to them.
Right.
So when you go from Mistborn, where you have the Allomancy magic, which is people can basically ingest metal and burn it to do things. That's a much different magic than in Stormlight Archives, which is, people absorb the energy from certain kinds of storms and can use them to do, like, illusions or fly or, attach different things to different things.
Well, in in Stormlight, the storms came in waves of, like, they were able to time the storms. Like,
Yeah.
they knew when they were coming, and these storms, you could catch the energy of these storms in, like, little
Spheres, yeah.
spheres that actually ended up as currency.
Yeah. So the different kinds of gems that are these spheres, they will hold what's called stormlight, and they'll glow. So people use them for all kinds of things. They use them as light, as like lanterns and things. Mm-hmm. They use them as money. They use them to power their technology.
Right.
So they use them for all kinds of things.
They're
and then
resource.
the actual magic users, I can't remember what they call them, the Surge Binders. So the Surge Binders can use Stormlight to use their powers.
Right.
So they carry around a bunch of spheres usually, and they can pull the Stormlight out of the spheres into themselves and go do whatever it is their branch of Surge Binding is.
Gotcha.
So there's a bunch of different branches of Surge Binding, and they have a bunch of different stuff. But some of the other worlds, like Elantris, that one's much closer to traditional style D&D-esque magic, where they use their hands to draw pictures in the air, and it does a thing.
Right.
But the interesting thing about Elantris is some years before the book starts, something went wrong, and all of the essentially wizards, the Elantrians, they lost their power, and now they look like zombies.
Nice.
And people are excessively afraid of them, so they all got locked in their own city, and they can't leave.
Gotcha.
And every once in a while, a new Elantrian will be chosen by the universe, and they just wake up one day and they look like a zombie, and everyone just gets scared of them and throws them in the city to fend for themselves. So,
Yay!
it is a little story about, a guy trying to figure out, well, I used to be a prince, and now I'm a zombie thing that should be able to do magic but can't.
A zombie thing.
And it was a really neat story about him trying to figure out how to fix the magic and fix the world, and then there's also some politics and things that are going on in another country that's going to invade. So yeah, that stuff's happening in the background.
Gotcha. So it's like a
there's
string.
a lot.
It's a web of stories.
It's a web of stories. A lot of his stories are webs of stories.
Yeah. And
so like
sometimes you can't even tell that they're part of a
The whole
Cosmere,
thing.
like all one universe, unless you know that they're all part of one.
unless you knew that they were supposed to be the same universe, Elantris and Warbreaker especially, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Right.
The only way to really tell that a lot of these are in the same universe is sometimes you see some characters where they shouldn't be.
Okay, right.
So, the character you see most often is this guy named Hoyd. He appears in, I think, every book.
So is it like linear time with how the way you read it, like the order of you
There isn't
reading
really-
it? Does
there
it
isn't
jump
really an order.
into times or
There isn't really an order. You can tell some things happen before other things.
Okay, gotcha. But it doesn't matter.
Like Mistborn happened, at the very least, from what I can tell, several hundred years before Stormlight.
Okay, gotcha.
And then there's another series of Mistborn that takes place. It's either taking place at the same time as Stormlight or a little bit before Stormlight. I can't tell which one it is because there's supposed to be another series of Mistborn that comes afterward, and it hasn't been written yet, so I don't know what exactly is going on with that timeline. But things like Warbreaker, which is a really neat one. Two of the main characters from Warbreaker have appeared in the Stormlight Archive. but unless you know to look for them, you might completely miss them.
Gotcha.
Like I had read both stories, and I recognized one thing that made me go, I kind of wonder if these are connected, and it didn't have anything to do with those two characters.
Mm-hmm.
It had to do with the sword that one of the characters carried in Warbreaker, and I see the sword in Stormlight Archives, and I go, that sword sounds really familiar.
Yeah.
You know, it's a black
Right.
sword that cuts through anything, steals the life force from whoever wields it, and talks to them. That seems really specific.
Yeah.
There can't be two swords that do this, right?
Yeah, you would think probably not.
So
yeah.
it's the same
Yeah.
sword. It
Right.
got from one place to the other place. And while I was researching that and figuring that out, I also figured out that two other characters, you know, the one who carried the sword and the one who hung out with him, were also in the Stormlight Archive. As two important characters, they're just not using their real names.
Ah.
So-
And you would never know that
Right.
unless you know that.
But, you know, the one who carried the sword is being hunted by the person he used to hang out with, and he's no longer carrying the sword.
Hmm.
So since he doesn't have the sword, he's kind of hard to pick out.
Right.
And except that I recognize some of his slang. He used a lot of slang and curse words that come from the Warbreaker book, and I was just like, that's weird, because all in Warbreaker, all their slang and their cursing and all that, it has to do with colors for some reason.
Okay.
Because a lot of their magic system has to do with colors.
Mm.
So their magic system is awakening. They can make inanimate objects animate objects.
Right.
And the way
That's
they
cool.
do it is they steal color from something,
And give it to something
and
else.
the color powers the thing, but they also have to put human souls in it. It's weird.
All right.
It's a neat magic system, but it's very complicated and weird, and but it's definitely worth a read. And the majority of the fun stuff that happens with the god, and he's like, there's several gods, but the main god.
Yeah, the
Uh,
one that got everybody pissed off at him.
No,
Or
so-
oh, there's a whole. All right.
there's a lot of gods. But
Gotcha.
these gods are they were people who died and came back to life for no reason, and now they are excessively beautiful. They glow. You know, they have all these
They have
weird
godly
powers.
attributes.
They're godly. You know, so but the main one is he's whoever is king. They were born dead, right? They were basically stillborn and then came back to life. So they were basically born a god.
Gotcha. That's
So
crazy.
yeah,
I like that.
he ends up being king.
Yeah, but they're
Yeah.
they're very hard for me to read. So I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, they're very intricate. They're very
I've found that if you just a lot of stuff like this, it depends on timing.
right.
Yeah.
You know, because like I probably would love the crap out of the Dresden Files right now. You know, because of some of the other things that I've read since the
Yeah.
last time I tried.
Right.
You know, or watched or whatever, or even some of the crap that I've just been through in my
Right.
life.
Right. Right.
But
You know?
the good thing about Brandon Sanderson is his books are very different from each other.
Mhm.
So if you want like a more straightforward fantasy war story, Stormlight Archives is a really good one. If you want something closer to
You
a
get
heist
something
heist type,
of every
the,
flavor.
the original Mistborn is closer to that. If you want political thriller, then Elantris is a really good one.
Mhm.
If you want romance and espionage, then Warbreaker. And if you want Wild West, I'm super serious, like a western, like sheriffs and cowboys, and the second Mistborn trilogy. Well, it's gonna be a quadrilogy, but
Quadrilogy.
yeah, it's gonna be 4 books. It's only 3 right now, but it's basically magic in the Old West. They still have all the Mistborn powers, but now they also have guns.
Nice.
So then they wear dusters and cowboy hats, and you know they ride horses, and it's freaking neat.
All right, so we're gonna put a cap on that because
That was very long.
we're coming up on an hour
Well,
10 now.
there's a lot of Brandon Sanderson.
There
so.
is.
Yes.
We
it's a
we
big-
can do Maze Runner real quick.
Alrighty.
So I don't know, Tim. Have you ever read Maze Runner?
I have not.
So Maze Runner was actually written for like middle school aged kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of those like post-apocalyptic. This is the world now kind of things,
Right.
which is essentially like 90% of teenage,
Yeah,
literature.
what is up with that? Why is like whenever someone says young adult, they basically assume post-apocalyptic now.
Yeah, no,
Like, it's-
that's 100%, and like.
Is that why everybody became doomsday preppers? Is because all they're reading is
There
post-apocalyptic
came a point
books?
where I'm just like, man, this is stale, and
Like it used to be
'cause
young adult just meant
they're all just-
written for young people, and now it just means post-apocalyptic wasteland. Everyone tries to survive.
It's like they're all just like chicken, but with different seasoning on it.
yeah. I put
chicken.
paprika on this one,
Right.
and cayenne on this one. Let's see them fight.
But anyway, so the Maze Runner, honestly, it's actually kind of distinct because I would say a lot of the post-apocalyptic ones have like female protagonists. This one has a male protagonist.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
this one,
I think you might
like
be right. Yeah.
the deep story. Like once you have it all figured out, I would say it's a little bit differently because it kind of has like more of a like humans playing God aspect rather than just
Yeah.
a humans playing.
So it has
tyrants
4
aspect.
books in the series, but
Yes.
three are the trilogy, and the 4th book is a prequel.
Yeah, I think so.
So
I haven't read the 4th book
I have, and it was okay.
No, me neither.
because you haven't read the first 3.
But the first,
Haha.
the 3 books that are all based on the same group of characters. I mean, the very first book is very intriguing. Just in the opening couple of pages, couple
Yeah,
of
'cause
chapters,
there's-
because you don't know what's going on.
But they still keep you like sometimes you read a book and you don't know what the hell's going on. Like you guys both really liked King Killer, but like the reason why I didn't continue reading it after the first chapter is like I was confused as I had
Yeah.
no idea what was going on, and I was kind of like.
King Killer probably didn't hook me until at least chapter 5.
But the thing about
Yeah.
like I didn't know
It
what was
took
going
me
on.
like 2 weeks to get to chapter
It took
5,
till-
and it took me 2 days to
You
finish.
know
the
when
book.
it really
Right.
hooked me was when he got to, was it Tarbine?
Yeah,
When he had to live on his own.
yeah.
Anyways,
That
but
hooked
this
me.
is one of those books that like I didn't know what was going on, but I wanted to find out.
Right.
What was going
This
on.
isn't like
Is
the
it,
book
is it
when
more,
I
is
say
it
you
more,
don't
is
know
it more
what's
like
going
Gentlemen
on.
Bastards, where like, sure, you don't know what's going on for the first 10 sentences, but after that, you're good.
Well, this
Well,
isn't
see-
like the you don't know what's going on because it's so sporadic. This is you don't know what's going on because the mystery behind why they're there is keeping you reading the book.
Yeah,
You
like,
gotta
so-
know- you got to solve this.
It's
mystery.
like baby steps, like, oh, what's going on right here? I want to know. And then they tell you. And then they're just like, oh, more. Okay, what's going on here? And then they tell you. And then, oh, what's going on here? And then they tell you. And then, eventually it just becomes this, like, everything that's happened is because of this,
it's very
one big
Lord of the
reason.
Flies with no memory type thing.
Yeah.
I was
They...
gonna say, like, from what I've seen about it, it kind of reminded me of like Lost, except not written by the B Squad.
Right.
Like,
I could say,
Well,
yeah,
I
okay.
think I think it has
There's a lot of people
of
that love that
Lost,
show, but man,
Lost.
Lost was that show that everyone loved until the writer's strike.
yeah.
Because when the writer's strike happened, B Team comes in to try and save the day, and
I feel
that sunk Lost and Heroes.
I feel like
Right.
when Lost and when Heroes came out, it's like at the time it was good, but like as time has progressed, it just doesn't stand
Doesn't
the
hold
test
up.
of
They
time.
probably don't, but the thing is, they could have probably been better if the writer's strike hadn't happened,
yeah,
and they
definitely.
continued with the same amount of quality. Because you can say that for a lot of good shows. The beginning's a little rough, but you can tell that there's good stuff there,
Mhm.
and then it just continues to get better over time.
Right.
But when you have something like the writer's strike happen in the middle of your show,
Right.
you get screwed.
So to kind of just for the first book, because honestly, I feel like if we describe that, it'll kind of just carry you through the series.
Yeah.
Like they're all different. Like they have their differences because like each one is kind of like their own puzzle that continues to reveal
Yeah,
more.
because each book has its own puzzle they have to solve.
Yeah. But in the Maze Runner, essentially, the people are dropped into this maze or into this place where they have to find a way out of the maze, or they think they do, or they're trying to find a way out of the maze.
Kind of reminds me of like what was it, The Cube?
They're essentially like lab mice. But you don't
Yeah.
know that yet. You're just like,
Doors-
the main character is like, oh, he just got sent here and everybody else is already there and they're telling him, oh, what's up, Greenie? Like, you're the new guy, you know, FNG, blah, blah, blah.
They got to figure out. So they're dropped
But-
in with zero memory either.
They don't know
are,
who they are. They don't know
and
Jack.
They don't know anything about their past. They don't, and it continues on. You don't ever regain your
But-
memory.
But so he's the second to the last person to arrive. You know, because when the last person arrives, there's like a note that says this is the last one.
Mhm.
You know, but anyways, a cool. I mean, he arrives. He's the second to last, and like he's kind of still trying to figure everything out. And then all of a sudden, the last person arrives, and it's a girl. And for a second, you don't realize why that's a big deal. But then you're like, holy crap, she's the only girl.
That could get awkward.
Yeah. And then so basically that kind of gives you your first hint at like what the hell's going on here, and then like they eventually work their way through finding their way out of this maze, and I mean the story
It just grows from there.
It grows. It just continues to grow.
I mean-
without spoiling anything, I can't really say all that
the
much
name
more.
of the second book is The Scorch Trials.
Scourge Trials, and then
Which basically,
Yeah, what's
again,
the
it
third one
continues
called?
with a lot of the same group. Now, some of the original group, obviously, things happen in the first book.
yeah,
so
yeah. There's
it's not the full same group, but the basic main characters go on to the second book and even
Yeah.
into the third book.
stories progress, and you
And-
know
and it
things
just
happen.
seems that,
Obviously,
like,
everybody knows
Every
that.
single one of these is some kind of like the Maze Runner is a test,
Yeah, they're
and it
they're
becomes
tests.
a puzzle.
They're
And then the
basically
Scorch Trials become another
Yeah.
test, and it's another puzzle, and then I forget the name of the third book. right
me
now.
too. I just said that like 2 minutes ago. I don't even know what the name of the third book is. It's like,
But
for me, I think that the first two books are ridiculously good.
yeah,
And engaging, and like, oh, this is interesting, and I want to know, and I want to read and find out more. And then, kind of by the time I got the third book, you're like, okay, they're all the same book, just with different seasoning. on
different
it.
different trials.
They're all pieces of chicken with different seasoning on it. I like that analogy. I just pulled that out of my butt, but it makes sense for a lot of just
Yeah.
teen, young adult things.
And that's essentially
So,
the state of young adults.
If you
Yeah.
haven't
Yes.
read The Maze Runner, the mystery behind a lot of what's going on
Or
within
at
the
least-
books
at least
is
the ones that are
very,
popular.
very intriguing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
the
the
fourth
popular
book. The
ones.
fourth book is a prequel to like everything, and
So once you've read the first three books,
yeah,
you might
definitely
be
don't
interested
read.
in reading.
Definitely
the fourth.
don't read the fourth book first.
Yeah, just because it's a prequel doesn't mean read it first, because then uber spoils.
Yeah, it's like trying to watch the Star Wars prequels first. It just ruins Empire for everybody.
right. So,
Right, exactly,
well, when
because you already know.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I always ask the question before before I introduce anybody into the Star Wars series. I know we're going to get off on our tangent, but this is my tangent. So, the first question I ask is, do you know the secret? If they know the secret that happens in Empire, I let them watch episode 1 first, and they can watch the whole story. Let
Let
it
them
evolve.
decide.
Why
story-wise.
would you torture someone with episode 1 first?
But if they don't know the secret that happens in
Then they
Empire,
have to watch.
then
the
they have to
original
watch A
trilogy.
New Hope first, and then make them watch A New Hope, Empire, and then Jedi, and then if they're really still into the Star Wars and they feel like they're
Then
getting
they
some
can
knowledge
watch
behind
the
it,
bad writing. Of,
then you can watch. Then
the
you can watch the
sequel
Crybaby Anakin and the first couple.
and the sequel trilogy with bad writing
Well, yeah.
with Disney
yeah.
in charge.
The first
Yeah,
movie
that's-
was
J.J.
Let's
episode
not go to
7 was
Anyways,
okay.
yeah,
Episode
alright.
8 sucked. Episode
You-
9 was okay.
We're at about an hour and 20.
So do you
we
want to
got
talk about one more series and then we'll just
Jonathan
call it?
Tibbs.
The Chronicles of Jonathan Tibbs. I don't have a whole lot to say about it because I'm the only one who read it.
Right.
But I'm just going to give a quick little, if you might be interested in this, then read it. The Chronicles of Jonathan Tibbs. It's about
Jonathan Tibbs.
Jonathan Tibbs. He is a normal college student. He lives in a rented house with his 3 roommates, 2 dudes that are kind of excessive nerds that argue about comic books and movies all day, and the girl. So
There's always the.
she's a girl.
Yeah.
She's a bit quick and loose with her pants. But
Okay.
so she likes to go out and do that. One of the two nerdy guys has a crush on her, and that doesn't work out too well for him. Jonathan Tibbs knows all of this, and he does not care. The only thing he cares about is he wants to go to school, and he wants to get good grades, and he wants to be a good college student. And then everything goes to hell because just
Sounds like an anime.
just
this
some
is definitely-
random dude shows up in his house one day and goes, "You have a special destiny," and it stabs him in the chest. And
Sweet.
and so that did not work out too great for him. He goes to the hospital and he's all dying and stuff. He wakes up and he's a superhero. It's really weird, but it's kind of neat. So when I say he's a superhero, it's a really weird version of a superhero. He gets superpowers that are like he has super strength, super endurance, stuff like that, and then but the only time he can get these superpowers is if there is a specific race of evil beings around.
So he doesn't have them.
He doesn't have them all
so
the time.
He's like Sting. Like he only glows blue when orcs are around.
Yeah.
I like it.
And then once he kills the bad guy, time reverses and goes back to right before the thing shows up.
To stab him.
No, it reverses to the right before the evil creature shows up.
Oh,
so
okay.
before he got superpowers, the thing remains dead, and he's the only one that remembers what happened during that period of time. And they just have to go forward from there. So every once in a while, his friends just think that he has seizures. Because he'll just fall down on the ground, gaining these superpowers, and he'll wake up and go, "I don't have time to explain this again." And then he'll rush out the door and go beat up a monster.
That's hilariously cool.
All right, so we've run this one a little longer than the other episode, but it's fine. We always go on our tangents. So
Harrison's wearing a
do a quick.
Rastafarian hat.
We'll do a
Yeah.
quick.
It's
Do
Harrison,
quick
man.
recommendations.
Harrison,
Go
man.
around the room. Quick recommendations.
I would recommend reading Twisted and just jumping into that psychological fuckage.
James?
I'm gonna go last. Go ahead and.
I'm gonna go last.
So honestly, I
agree.
do really enjoy the Chronicles of Jonathan Tibbs and all the Brandon Sanderson stuff. I do, but I have to give a recommendation for If You Find Me. It is an amazing book, and I don't think it gets appreciated enough.
Well,
Okay, you want me to go next?
go ahead.
Are we still doing books?
Yeah.
Okay, I would recommend Pillow Thoughts by Courtney Peppernell. It's another poem book.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. So I have a recommendation that we didn't talk about. It just kind of came to my brain a little while ago. It's a book series called Gone. And
Okay.
it,
I've been meaning to read that.
yeah, it's very good.
I remember you telling me about
It has superpowers and it's about kids. So the whole thing is nobody in there is under the age of 15. The little dome pops up out of nowhere. Everybody within the dome is under 15. Everybody that's over 15 gets kicked out of the dome. So they got to learn to survive within this dome, and a couple of them randomly get superpowers.
Did they make a show about this? That sounds
No.
familiar.
Now, you might be thinking about Under the Dome,
Yeah.
which is
They
based
didn't
off
get
the Stephen King
superpowers.
book.
Okay.
They didn't get superpowers in that one, but yeah, it's called Gone. It's a series called Gone. I think it's the first book is called Gone, and then each book has a different name. But I think they've actually just called it the Gone series. Didn't talk about it much, but it's very teenagers and superpowers left alone to their own devices. It gets kind of crazy in there.
Is
So-
is it also a young adult?
I think so.
So, yeah, more chicken. More chicken, more
with
flavors.
different flavors on it. So, but with that, we're gonna say adios
Sayonara.
and talk at you guys later.